Good evening and welcome to the October 24th, 2024 regular meeting of the San Diego Community Power Board of Directors. I am Joe LaCava, Chair of the Board and the representative for the City of San Diego. We welcome members of the public, the community power staff, and board members joining us in person today at the Port of San Diego Administration Building. And we certainly want to thank the Port of San Diego for the hospitality. And I believe the Port Clerk, Donna Morales, is here, as well as IT staff to make sure everything goes smoothly on our first run through. So thank you very much. I will now call the October 24th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Directors of San Diego Community Power to order. Mari, will you please call the roll?
Chair LaCava.
Present.
Vice Chair Lassen-Riemer. Director Aguirre. Here. Director Parent. Director Yamani. Here. Director McCann. Director Hinsey. We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. So let's start. Please stand if you're able and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As stated, a quorum is again present. We'll go to special presentations, introductions, and I'll start out with the land acknowledgement. We will begin with, we will acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the land of the original inhabitants of the greater San Diego region. A land acknowledgement is a critical step toward working with Native communities, create meaningful partnerships and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of their cultural resources and homelands. Let's take a moment to honor those ancestral grounds that were the traditional lands of the Kumeyaay. And with that, we'll move on to introduction of new community power staff. And I believe here with us today is Marissa Van Sant, who is a senior program manager. Marissa, if you want to come forward and offer a brief description of your background.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to address the board and introduce myself today. I'm Marissa Van Sant. I am joining San Diego Community Power's customer programs team as a senior program manager. I'm proud to say that I will be supporting Sheena Tran and others on the launch and development of the San Diego Regional Energy Network. On behalf of the REN, I will be supporting two of our commercial sector programs, as well as our residential, single family, and multifamily equity programs. A little bit about myself and my background. I have about 15 years of environmentally focused project management experience, and in the last 10 years, I've been specifically in energy efficiency program implementation. I started my career on the technical side in soil and groundwater remediation, hazardous waste management, and industrial operations for large telecommunications, utility, and industrial operations, as well as specifically for all four of our U.S. naval installations here in San Diego. I then moved into the clean energy industry and have not looked back. I spent 5 years at the Center for Sustainable Energy, where I managed codes and standards, capacity building, and permit streamlining programs for the City of San Diego and City of Chula Vista. I also supported SANDAG, as well as jurisdictions in Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties on these initiatives. At CSE, I also supported the City of San Diego and County of San Diego on zero net energy initiatives, as well as two California Energy Commission EPIC grants focused on technology demonstrations in underserved communities here in the region. I most recently come from TRC, which is an engineering and energy services consulting company, where I led income qualified whole building energy efficiency retrofit programs, and specifically was the program manager for a statewide ESA multifamily energy savings program. Excited to bring this experience here to SDCP and for all the great work ahead that we have with the REN. Thank you.
All right, welcome aboard, Marissa. So with the excitement of bringing new folks on board, sometimes we have to say goodbye to folks that have been here. So for those of you who don't know, this is Director Parent's last board meeting with Community Power. So we certainly wanted to recognize this momentous occasion. And momentous. Maybe that's not the right word. I think it is. There we go. Do I want to go down there? Or We're all fitting. There we go. You have been a tremendous asset to the board, so we're going to miss you. But we know you're on for bigger and better things going forward. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So with that, we do have a resolution recognizing your service going forward. Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of San Diego Community Power that it hereby commends and honors Colin Parent for his commitment and extends his gratitude for his service. All right. So let's do a picture first. All right. So before we give you a chance to speak, if any of the directors want to say anything, we have a little bit of a light crowd today, but
we're gonna miss you, Colin, especially after serving with you on the FRMC. Your perspectives, your economic lens that you look at everything on, it's very well appreciated and.
Dr. Parent, congratulations. Thank you for your service. We will continue to work with you. We know.
And if you wanted to offer any closing thought.
Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Chair, for your leadership and for this recognition. I want to thank my colleagues that I've served on the board for these last 2 years for their service and for the Karen and all of your staff what all have done. I was very pleased to be one of those people on the Mesa City Council to vote to create the agency initially. And proud that I got to spend the last couple of years of my time on the City Council representing us here. And I think these are challenging times to do an agency like this, meaning our dynamics of both having lower rates to ratepayers and the energy commitments. And I think the staff and the board have looked at really tremendous. So I think that's I'm really proud of the work we've done and looking forward to doing what we can continue to keep it right. So thank you very much. Yeah,
Thank you. Okay, you're not done yet. All right. So with that, back on the regular agenda. So are there any items to be added, withdrawn, or reordered on the agenda?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Mark. So we'll go to non-agenda public comment. That is any written public comments that were submitted before the board meeting were emailed to all directors prior to the board meeting and will be posted on the website at the beginning of the meeting. Mari, do we have any non-agenda public comment?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So moving right along, we'll go on to the consent calendar, and I'll quickly read through the 11 items that are on the consent calendar. Approve the meeting minutes of September 26, 2024. Receive and file the treasurer's report for period ending July 31st, 2024. And receive and file updates on programs, power resources, human relations, marketing, public relations, and local government affairs. Community Advisory Committee. We'll have a regular report later. And receive and file update on the regulatory and legislative affairs. And receive and file update on IT and data analytics. 2 action items. Number 10, approve a contract with Precision NRG with a not to exceed amount of $575,870 through March 2026 for refrigeration equipment supplier services and authorize execution by the Chief Executive Officer. And item 11, approve amendment to the revolving credit agreement with JP Morgan to increase the credit facility from 150 to 250 million. So are there any directors that would like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Not seeing any? Oh, sorry.
Could I just briefly suggest while we're waiting for Director Hinsey, that the board pull item 11 and then vote on that separately just to make sure we have 5 votes for that item present.
Okay. All right. And we can still treat it as consent?
Yes, you can still vote on it without a separate vote.
All right. So for public comment, we will be taking comment on items 1 through 10. Mari, do we have any public comment?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So with that, we'll need a motion and a second on the consent calendar items 1 through 10.
Happy to move.
Okay. And we still don't have anybody remote. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstention? All right, that passes 4-0. Again, motion by Director Aguirre and a second by Director Parent on consent items 1 through 10. And I guess we'll just trail item 11 until Director Hinsey shows up. So we'll move on to item 12, which is the Community Advisory Committee quarterly report. And I will turn it over to the Community Advisory Board Chair, Matthew Vasilakis, to present this item.
Twenty 2025. Thank you. First quarter report to the board. Just as a reminder, at the August regular meeting of the board, I presented a summary of the CAC fourth quarter activities. This report summarizes July through September and gets us in the correct reporting cadence per quarter of that. You will receive the next report from me in January. Some general meeting activity news. Over the past few months, the CAC has continued to implement the 2024 work plan, assisting community power staff and board in the development and implementation of key initiatives and ensuring the promotion of equity in all tasks and items brought before the CAC. And this has included the Ralph M. Brown Act trainings, conflict of interest ethical code policy trainings, communication, solar battery savings contract training, regulatory and legislative affair updates, community power grant agreements, and community power network. Love the network. That is going to be a great initiative for SDCP. We've also received training and educational opportunities that align with the organization's mission and values, many of which are listed here on the slide. And as a reminder, we held officer elections in July, which resulted, of course, in me being chair, Larry Emerson of National City being vice chair, and Aida Castañeda as our secretary. So as a reminder in relation to the CAC, we do have some vacancies, one of which was filled for the city of San Diego with Luis Montero Adams representing the city of San Diego. But a reminder, we do have one from Chula Vista that is open and one from the unincorporated county that has been open for over a year. So if someone can call Tara, that would be great. Upcoming by the end of fiscal year 2025, we'll have Encinitas, and then next year in fiscal 26, City of San Diego, La Mesa, Encinitas, and National City will all have absences. Finally, on the civic engagement and participation front, the CAC members continue to support member recruitment efforts, provide informational presentations to the board, like this one, and will be taking part on social media content, engagement, and encouragement online. As I wrap up my presentation, I would like to take note that the CAC will be revisiting the work plan in the coming months to provide some updates. And we'll document that in the future. The board is expected to receive a final draft of the CAC work plan at the beginning of 2025. I look forward to continuing to lead the CAC in the next year and work with the community on getting the good word out on SDCP's good work. That concludes my quarterly report. Oh, actually, one note. I really appreciate SDCP's presence in participation at Climate Action Campaign's event last week. That was really stellar, just hearing Karen speak with the commissioner and, of course, various board members being on various panels. It was very inspiring and really great way to connect with community folks. So with that, I'll take any questions.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate your service to Community Power by serving as the chair of the advisory committee. So we'll start off. Mari, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so I'll turn it over to the board members. This is simply a receive and file. No motion is required. Do we have any questions or comments? Director Aguirre.
A quick comment. Very much looking forward to the forthcoming plan. I definitely want to work with you all together a little bit more to do more outreach in community. I know that's been very important. We heard it during the CAC's conference, and stellar participation from some of our other colleagues that were on the panel. So, and thank you, Karen, for attending that. I missed yours, but for you were great. So thank you.
Of course. And I'll note that the representatives from Imperial Beach have been very vocal at the CAC. And so we want to think of more creative ways to engage with those folks, especially as some new programs are coming through the programs team that are really awesome and could do a world of wonder in Imperial Beach.
Not seeing any other. Again, thank you, Chair Vasilakis, for
Thank you
your
so
good
much
work and your service in making that quarterly report. So now we'll move on to item 13, which is consideration to adopt resolution 2024-08, authorizing execution of an energy prepayment transaction. The related documents and the form of documents subject to maximum issue amounts, the limitation on fees, and minimum required savings. And I will turn it over to Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Eric Washington, to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, directors and members of the public and staff. Dr. Eric Washington, Chief Financial Officer at San Diego Community Power. Really excited to present this item. We have been pursuing a prepaid financing transaction for several months. I can recall having conversations about these types of transactions shortly after joining Community Power. So I'm happy to report that we are really close to actually executing on this transaction that will translate into some really amazing things for our customer base and communities that we serve. Got a few slides that I'll just run through just to kind of highlight these types of transactions, a bit of a background on them, and where we are with regard to how they benefit our constituencies with having one of these transactions executed. So this slide is a brief overview. The goal is to position us to be able to reduce cost of power by 8% or more, cost being the largest expense item in our budget and in our financial statement, to leverage the tax-exempt bond capacity to secure long-term supply of power. These types of transactions date back to the early 1990s, largely around natural gas transactions. It's allowed under the U.S. tax code. There have been over 75 billion in transactions done in the United States, comprised of over 100 different transactions. 12 CCAs have transacted or have actually executed on these transactions, totaling 11.3 billion. To date, we've got 6 community choice aggregators or CCAs that have closed transactions, and we are in line to complete our first transaction. Next slide, please. This slide is essentially an overview of several gas-related transactions. And overall, these are centered in natural gas, and they've saved about 15% in terms of discounts on their PPAs. The next slide. This slide highlights the transactions among CCAs. So all transactions have achieved 9.5% or better. Most recently, transactions have achieved over 12% discount in terms of the cost of energy. Next slide. This slide shows the key participants or parties that are part of these types of transactions. So this should be a familiar slide to the board. I'd like to highlight the issuer. The issuer is Community Choice, California Community Choice Financing Authority, who we are now a member of the board, approved that resolution to allow us to join that organization to serve as the issuer on the bond transaction. Today, we received a conditional approval from them on the transaction. The next slide, please. So this slide essentially goes through the trajectory of our progress, bringing us to today where we're seeking approval from our board on the transaction with the hopes of executing early November and actually closing the transaction early November as well. That's going to be dependent upon market activities and market conditions at the time we actually look to transact on the transaction. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Washington, for the presentation. This is the culmination of the work that you have presented to the board in the past. So we'll start out. Mari, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, Mr. Chairman.
So now this one will require an action by the board to adopt the resolution as recommended by staff. I'll make a couple of opening comments. I appreciate how you've taken a step-by-step through this process to really understand kind of this first attempt to take advantage of this opportunity. As Director Parent mentioned, part of the challenge we have is both to deliver clean energy, but also to keep the rates low for our customers throughout the service area. And this could be a really important step along the way. So thank you for the good work and everybody on the team that has put this together. So I'll turn it over to my colleagues on the board. Do we have any questions or comments for Dr. Washington? We will need a motion. Right,
Mr. Chairman, motion to adopt resolution number 2024-08 as recommended by staff.
I'll second.
Second by Beery. All right, not seeing any other. Oh, sorry,
Mr. Chair. Do we know how close Director Hinze is?
Okay.
My apologies.
No, I can understand.
For this item, be better to have the 5 minutes here. I'm sorry, we were asking Mayor McCann as well.
I don't think we were expecting Mayor McCann. And Supervisor Loss-Reamer was a possibility, but
if the board likes it to table this item, you can back to the vote. Yes, but under the JPA agreement, it requires a 2/3 vote to issue bond for 2/3 of the members appointed.
all right. Well, we'll hope that she navigates traffic and hopefully she's headed towards this facility and not. So we will delay vote on item 13 as well. I think that's the last one that actually requires a vote. So we'll move quickly then on to, or not too quickly, to give her a chance to show up. Item 14, which is the fiscal year and 2023-2024 financial audit progress report presentation. And I will turn it over to
Mr. Chair. Apologies, your mic's not on.
Oh. Is it okay now? Oh, I think I just kind of moved away. So again, item 14, fiscal year end 2023-2024 financial audit progress report presentation. I'll turn it over again to Dr. Eric Washington to introduce our auditors, Brett Bradford and Alejandra Schaefer, to present this item.
Dr. Washington. Thank you again, Mr. Chair and directors. The auditors, our audit team is present with us online. And they'll be providing an update to the board. The audit team represent Ascenti & Brinker auditing firm. So they'll report on the progress of the fiscal year 23-24 audit that's in process right now. So I will turn it over to Brett to lead the presentation on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. And good evening, everybody. If we could advance one slide, I'll try to be respectful of everybody's time. This is a quick background slide. I've been doing this type of work for quite a while, and we're currently working with several CCAs throughout the state. Unfortunately, Allie was not able to make it tonight, but I am fortunate to have her on our team for the CCAs. And if we could advance the next slide. We're very near completion and on track for reporting our final report at next month's board meeting. And we're expecting at this time an unmodified opinion, which is a good thing in the audit realm, and also no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control noted. And if we could, this slide just takes us through, it's a quick reminder on the relative roles and responsibilities. And essentially what it's saying is that management, that's Dr. Washington and his team, are responsible for preparing the financials, and we're responsible for auditing the financials. We have to maintain that distinction so that we're maintaining our required independence in the process. And then if we could advance again, please. Some of the significant areas of focus for our audit are revenue recognition, and we do that by testing cash receipts, AR. We test a sample of customer billings. We take a look at cash and securities and investments, and we send confirmations directly to financial institutions. And then if we could advance. And then on the other side of the balance sheet, we want to make sure that all costs and obligations are recognized. And we make sure that the financial statement note disclosures are complete and without bias. And these are a few required board communications. There were no new material accounting policies adopted by San Diego Community Power during the period. No alternative treatments of accounting principles for material items in the financial statements have been discussed with management. If we could advance. We're not expecting to propose any adjustments to the financials. And we have not identified any significant or unusual transactions or applications of accounting principles where a lack of authoritative guidance exists. No disagreements with management. It's always a good thing. And we have not encountered any difficulties in dealing with management. So some of those are a little dry and a little similar, but they are required by our auditing standards. And if we could advance, I think that might be the last one. I'm happy to answer any questions. We did meet separately with the Finance and Risk Management Committee last week, and we're just following on that meeting with a quick update to the general board today. I'm happy to answer any questions whatsoever.
All right, thank you, Dr. Washington and Mr. Bradford. And then just as a point of clarification, this is just a progress report. Will we have a final report when we've completed their work?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will have a final report, and that report will come to the board for next week.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
So first, Mari, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so again, this is a receive and file, no motions needed, but I'll turn over to board members for any questions or comments. Not seeing any of the, Director McCann.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to thank Dr. Washington and his finance team, and I think this was a great audit review, and we did go ahead and reviewed it as our subcommittee, and thank you very much.
Not seeing any other comment. So with that, thank you very much, Mr. Bradford, for taking the time to present this, and again, Dr. Washington, for your good work forward. So, okay, thank you. So for the record, Director McCann and Director Hinsey have joined the meeting. So thank you in navigating the traffic and getting down here. Under the advice of council, we delayed votes on a couple of items, and without objection for the board, we will go back and revisit those. So the first one is consent agenda item number 11, which we can continue to address as a consent item. And we had so for the record, we had so one, are the two directors comfortable voting on them as on consent? I want to make sure. So we did have a motion by Director Aguirre and a second by Director Parent. No, actually we didn't. I apologize. Those for items 1 through 10. So let me start over. So we will be taking a motion on consent agenda item number 11. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
And then a second by Geary. So this is consent item number 11. Remotely. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that passes unanimously with Director Lawson-Remer absent. The next item that we held the vote on was item 13. And again, for the record, and Nick, correct me if I get out of step, item 13 was adoption of resolution number 2024-08, authorizing execution of an energy prepayment transaction, related documents and form of documents subject to maximum issue amounts, limitation on fees and minimum required savings. And as Nick did for the earlier ones, there's actually bylaws that require 2/3 vote to pass these kinds of items. So unless there's any questions by the two directors, did you hear this at FRMC?
Yes.
Did you want to make a comment or share any thoughts?
Just, I think, again, we reviewed it and it was unanimous to accept this at the FRMC.
Okay. And I forgot to mention Vera, who could not be here tonight, also was very closely involved every step of the way, giving her legal insight on this as well. So unless there's any other questions, can I have a motion to approve item 13, the staff recommendation for item 13?
So move.
Second.
We had a motion. There's a motion and a second already.
There was? Which I didn't turn the page on. My apologies. We did have one from Director Yamani and a second by Director Aguirre. So my apologies for that. So with that then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously with Director Lawson-Remer absent. Let's see if I can get myself back on track. So I believe we're on item 15, which is an update on customer operations. And I will turn it over, I believe, to Ryan Henke, if I pronounce that correctly, Data Analytics Manager, to present this item. I don't know if he's going to have an introduction or...
It's going much better. All right. I'm Ryan Henke, Data Analytics Manager for San Diego. I'm here to give a brief update on the customer enrollment and participation statistics. As you may have noticed in the packets, the last few months have looked a little different. I'm just going to go over what some of those changes were. Next slide, please. So when we had two options, opting up and down was pretty simple. And as you know, we introduced two new options in July with PowerBase and Power 100 Green Plus. Just to be clear here, when we're talking up or down, we're talking by cost and renewable content. So Power 100 Green Plus is at the top and PowerBase is at the bottom. So next slide, please. Pretty simply, we just added the different service options to enrollment and participation. So we can see those by jurisdiction as well. Next slide, please. And when we're talking about ups and downs, now that we have more products, we just added the detail where they're opting to. Next slide, please. And for opt-outs, we also added the option for which service option they were on before they opted out. So just adding a little more detail to these. Next slide, please. And we continue to monitor and look at trends over time of opt-out reasons. We just added a couple new visuals to see those reasons over time. They're pretty consistent with the life cycle of a CCA where during mass enrollment, dislike of automatic enrollment is the top reason. Once you get through there, rate and cost concern typically becomes one of the top reasons. And that is what we have seen recently as well. Next slide, please. Because we know that customers are concerned about cost, PowerBase was introduced as an option for those cost-sensitive customers where they could pick a different option without opting out of community power. So we've been tracking those opt-downs to Power Base versus opt-outs. While we can't say for sure that all of the opt-downs would have been opt-outs, we really think because rate and cost concern is a top option that Power Base has been really useful in retaining those cost-sensitive customers. And that is it, and I can take any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation and the good work that it takes to pull this together and update it for the different levels that we now have. Mari, do we have any public comment?
No, Mr. Chairman.
So I'll turn it over to the board members for comments. Again, this is received and file, and no motion is required. Director Parent.
Yeah, I appreciate that last slide. That was instructive. Maybe you have an answer to this, or maybe Karen does, but when someone calls and asks and complains and wants to find out options, maybe they ask to opt out, are they invited to consider a different option?
Yes, that is part of our customer contact center's script, is to go through those options. And yes.
Okay, great.
Director Aguirre.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you pull back the slide where you explain the reasons behind opting out? No, the other one, sorry. You just had it up. That one. So I see that there's some spikes in between January and July. Can you just elaborate on that and why?
Yeah, so it depends on which one you're looking at, but the spikes in the green.
It's hard to read.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like this, like automatic enrollment. I imagine there's some cycle happening there.
Yeah, those line up perfectly with our mass enrollment cycles. So our phase 3 and then our phase 4 of the county.
And then I see the other spike is a rate or additional cost concerns, which looks like it's in the middle of summer. Can I assume it's because of the increased cost of summer?
You are absolutely right. All CCAs typically see that as summer bills roll in, customers start looking at their bill a little more closely. And yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Director Hensey.
Let's see, my mic on? There we go. So are we going to consider in the future, and sorry if I missed this while I was out, giving customers the option to opt back up if for some reason there's stabilization in rates?
Yeah, customers are able to change option.
But would we, as the organization behind that, do like a drive, some type of marketing or outreach or, push to get people to opt back up again?
Yeah, I think once we get further along, we'll discuss that strategy.
Okay, I think that would be a good idea because hopefully this is just a particularly expensive moment in time and that we can start in the future, starting to remind people about the environmental benefits of opting back up.
Absolutely.
All right. Just a couple, again, thank you for the good work and everybody on the team that does this. I'd just like to highlight a couple of numbers. One, we're over 955,000 customers and 95.5%. That's got to compare pretty favorably up and down the state. But I think that's pretty remarkable. A great job that everybody has done to opt everybody in automatically and then keep them there. So that's great. And then a special shout out to National City, who is the top retention. So pretty remarkable. So well done, Director Yamani, in keeping those folks in National City on board. But thank you, very good, and thank you for the updates. It's good for us to hear how things are changing. And I almost forgot, but thank you to staff for figuring out about Power Base as a softer place to land for customers that might be a little uncomfortable for whatever reason. That clearly, I think, was paying off. So that's good. So with that, again, thank you, Ryan, for the presentation.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to item 16, which is update on flexible load strategy. Turn it over to Tim Treadwell, Senior Program Manager, to present this item.
Good evening, Chair Cava, directors. I'm here tonight to give you a brief update on our flex load strategy. Next slide, please. So the FlexLoad strategy is focused on developing affordable programs. We want to help customers reduce the on-peak consumption that they're using in their homes and businesses and lower overall costs by reducing our resource adequacy and energy procurement requirements. This update focuses on the actions that staff has taken since the board approved the strategy in January of 2024. And I'm going to go over our actions in 3 areas: developing FlexLoad resource as a power service resource, integrating FlexLoad strategies into program design, and aligning our programs with state policy initiatives. So really quickly, just to give folks an update, we looked at this back when the initial strategy was presented to the board. We talk about flexibility. We're just talking about the ability to move around load. So shifting it, shedding it, pretty simple, just moving it from periods of high consumption when the grid's congested, when prices are high, when generation is not as clean, to periods of the day when it's less expensive, when it's cleaner, there's more renewables, it's abundant, it's less congested. That's good for customers, it's good for rates, and it's good for their TA prices. Next slide. So thinking about FlexLoad as a resource, so our standard operating procedure, we're serving customer load. Power Services can execute long-term contracts with large wholesale developers. They develop projects, we pay them for the resource adequacy for the energy, and they provide those services back to us on behalf of serving customer load. Next slide. FlexLoad programs provide an equivalent resource through alternative means. So we can get a portion of some of those same services, reducing our RA obligation and reducing our energy procurement costs through customers by moving our load around. And in exchange for that resource that we're getting from customers, we can divert some of the funding we would otherwise be paying large wholesale project developers, pay those funds back to our customers. So it's saving customers on their bill, and it's allowing us to divert funds from wholesale counterparties to our customers themselves. Next slide. So operationalizing savings. When we think about the programmatic benefits of FlexLoad, we look at RA savings, we look at energy savings. We're documenting them against the modifications that we've created in our peak demand, as well as our load profiles, looking at current rules and our forward pricing, and we're capturing that savings, adding it together and using it as a program resource. So we can fund customer incentives, administrative costs, and other implementation fees. And as we start to scale these programs, we are working on our program accounting, estimating those benefits, tracking those benefits over time, and making sure they're realized and we're getting the savings that we had anticipated. Next slide. And this work is already underway. So you all probably recognize this slide. This is from our solar battery savings program. That was our first program that we partially funded through Power Services savings, both in terms of the energy and the resource adequacy savings. And this is the model that we're using moving forward. So we developed the resource, we developed the dispatch strategy, we work with our colleagues in Power Services to understand the impact on our RA and energy requirements. And we captured that savings and diverted it to cover a portion of the incentives for the program. Next slide. And so we're working on this now across the program base. We're continuing our work with residential solar battery savings, now integrating work into our B1G managed charging pilot, our Equitable Building Decarb program, and the San Diego REN. All of these provide numerous opportunities on the equipment side, incentive design, coming up with plans to operate these assets, as well as contractor training and some other kind of upstream activities around codes and standards. And we're taking a holistic approach, finding opportunities to integrate these strategies, building the resource, and trying to maximize the value for customers. Next slide. So behind the scenes of all of this, it's going to get a little bit technical here, is the DERMS. I mentioned this before. I think there were some jokes about the density of this topic when I talked about it before, but it's really critical to the work that we're doing. This is the software system that allows us to actually interact with customer devices, and it takes in weather data, it takes our load forecast, it takes market signals, and allows us to optimize these resources to maximize that value for the ratepayers, customers. We just finished our procurement of this software system. You all approved it last month. Thank you for that. That was a culmination of a lot of work throughout this year. And in choosing that vendor, we screened them for a number of things. We wanted to understand the resources they had under control, the existing integrations, their ability to take market signals, their ability to help us run programs more efficiently. There's some turnkey kind of incentive processing and controls built into the platform, as well as IT security standards, making sure that we have a safe and secure system as we're interacting with customer resources. Next slide. And so this is a bit of a refresh here. These next 3 slides are the phases of this deployment that we talked about last time. The middle of this year, we were hoping to have the DERMS up and running, and that was just approved last month, which is great. The solar battery savings program went live in June, so we're on track there. And we're planning to bring our V1G, our managed charging, electric vehicle managed charging contract to the board next month if all stays on track. Next slide. Moving forward, we'll be rolling those batteries up under the DERM so we can automate dispatch and get more value from them. Right now, they're kind of on a static dispatch schedule that we're working with the manufacturers on. Next slide. And finally, as we roll into 2026, we want to have all of the resources stacked up under this central platform. Next slide. And this is another picture of kind of the same story. So we're looking at time here in devices, as well as a Gantt chart of program launch. So on the left-hand side, you see the program launch dates. Solar battery savings is up and running. The V1G program, we're expecting to come in Q1. And you see the REN and equitable billing decarb coming a little later. And then the hashed bar is when we plan to integrate those devices into the DERMS. And the graph on the right-hand side shows the cumulative devices aggregating up into the platform. And I think the big takeaway here is that as the size of the number of those devices grows, that's the size of the resource under control that we have the ability to move around, saving participants money on their bills, and ultimately in helping out in affordability by reducing our overall procurement costs. Next slide. So this is kind of where we're headed next. A lot of work has been done over the past 9 months. We're going to continue to refine our methodology around operational savings, calculations, and tracking. We're going to continue to integrate strategies and new program design. There's lots of opportunities there. After the approval of the DERMS contract last month, we quickly moved into implementation. We're in week 3 now, working with our vendor to stand up that software system. We're close to choosing our managed charging vendor, which I'll be excited to share with you when that occurs, again, hopefully next month. And we've been working with the policy team to align our collection strategy around numerous state policy initiatives. Some of the water heater technologies and dispatch, the load management standard that the CEC requires from us, as well as some of the local development goals. And I believe that's my last slide.
Thank you for very much for the presentation, Tim, and for the good work and everybody on the team that pulled this together. Mari, do we have any public comment on this item?
Mr. Chairman.
All right. This is a receive and file, no motions required, but I'll turn it over to the board members for any comments. Director Hinton.
Thanks for the presentation. I think the last time you presented it, I was scratching my head and having a hard time contextualizing it. And I've just had a stint as a purely stay-at-home mom for the last 2 months. And so I start to understand, oh, if I don't put the laundry in right now and I wait till this time, it's going to work. We're going to lower our electric bill. So I'm starting to understand it. And I think it's a really cool thing. And I can see people starting to engage more with the way that they live their lives and use their appliances and sort of plan this out. And I think that it's a really great way to put that consumer power back in the pockets of our ratepayers. So I'm starting to get it. And I think it's awesome.
Not seeing any comments by the other directors. Again, I'll just thank you, Tim, and look forward to more progress reports as it starts to roll out. Anything else? Great. Thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of our regular agenda. So we'll go to reports, and we'll start out with our CEO, Karen Burns.
All right. Good evening, members of the board, members of the public, community power staff, and skeletons in the room. So October was a very busy month for me in particular and for our public affairs and events and engagement teams. Last week, I had the opportunity to open the Harvard Kennedy School alumni community of San Diego's Politics of Energy discussion with an overview of how CCAs are contributing to California's clean energy transition. And then our Director of Legislative and Regulatory Affairs, Laura Fernandez, also participated in the evening's panel. Earlier this month, I also joined fellow CEOs of California CCAs for the annual Cal CCA board retreat up in San Francisco, where we had some great conversations around the future of CCAs and our clean energy landscape. I also celebrated the completion of an exciting solar and storage project at the Sherman Heights Community Center. This project, led by Hammond Climate Solutions, was funded in part through Community Power's inaugural Community Clean Energy Grant Program back in 2023. This week, several of us have been at the Association of Women in Water, Energy, and Environment, or AWE, conference, which we also sponsored, where I had the opportunity to open the event with a few words on how we are shaping a future for the San Diego region that is also sustainable and equitable. And then earlier today, I also moderated a panel focused on community engagement, where Jen LeBron, our Director of Public Affairs, shared her insights. Also this week, Cause San Diego held their annual conference, where Community Power Senior Community Engagement Manager, Xiomales Crespo, participated in a panel discussion about the role of engagement in building a climate resilient future. Also earlier this month, I was in Washington, D.C. and had the opportunity to attend the first National Conference for CCAs hosted by the Local Energy Aggregation Network, or LEAN. This conference was a great opportunity to connect with representatives from CCAs across the country. They're operating in 8 states and share best practices and lessons learned. I had the opportunity to participate in a panel discussion about starting and scaling a CCA. Also, while we were there, I was able to meet with many of the congressional offices representing the San Diego region, as well as offices within the Department of Energy, during which time the director of the DOE Loans Programs Office gave a shout out to Community Power for the success of our solar battery savings program. And just last week, Community Power sponsored and attended the Climate Action Campaign's annual Nexus Climate Summit. I kicked off the event with a myth versus fact segment where California Energy Commissioner Andrew McAllister and I discussed common misconceptions around clean energy and electrification. The program was packed with engaging panel discussions. Our Chair LaCava participated in a discussion on how upcoming elections will influence climate action. And our Mayor Aguirre participated in a panel discussion about how we can combat climate change, such as fires, floods, and extreme heat. Community Power's program manager, Nelson Lamelli, sat on a panel moderated by the chair of our Community Advisory Committee, Matthew Vasilakis, which discussed electrification. And as always, Community Power has been out and about in the community. Next slide, please. We attended the CPUC's Small and Diverse Business Expo, an annual event that creates opportunities for small businesses to connect with utilities from across California. And we were also at the Surfrider Foundation's Paddle for Clean Water, where local communities came together to show support for protecting our coastline. And this month, we began hosting in-person informational workshops where local community groups could learn more about how they can get involved in the new San Diego Community Power Network. The request for qualifications for that power network is currently posted and will be open through November 11th. We also held our first workshop last week at Cafe X. Our second workshop was held earlier in the week at the North San Diego Business Chamber. The third and final workshop will be held this weekend at the Spring Valley Public Library. And then a quick update on our hiring progress. We recently opened a new position, IT Systems Engineer, and we're also interviewing for several additional positions. On November 5th, we will be welcoming 2 new members to the Community Power team, Ethan Toth, Data Engineer, and Desiree Doherty, Marketing Manager. So meet them next month. And lastly, before we conclude, I wanted to extend one more thank you to Councilmember Colin Parent for all that you have done for Community Power and the communities that we serve. So on behalf of the entire Community Power team, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And that concludes my report.
As you mentioned, you certainly did have a busy month. And I appreciate you carrying the community power message across the country now, not just across the state, but across the country. Before we wrap, do we have any director comments? Anything that's happening in your individual city, jurisdictions? Not hearing any. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I appreciate everyone's participation today. We are adjourned. The next regular meeting of the Board of Directors of San Diego Community Power will be on November 21st, 2024. We are adjourned. Thank you all.